I've done it. I've finally done it.
There is a particular kind of cruelty that wears the face of a husband. It does not announce itself. It does not come in loudly. It sits across from you at the dinner table, watches you stretch the last of the groceries into something that resembles a meal, and says nothing. It watches your children fall asleep still hungry and says nothing. It watches you wear the same pair of shoes for 3 winters straight and says nothing. And every single night, while you lay your tired body down and closed your eyes, it got up quietly, walked to the back of the house, knelt down in the dark, and buried its secret deeper into the ground. This is the story of Raymond and Gloria Webb, and what happened in that backyard will stay with you long after this video ends. Raymond Webb was not a poor man. He was not struggling. He was not in debt. He was not the victim of bad luck or a broken economy or a system that had failed him. Raymond Webb was sitting on a fortune. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, wrapped in waterproof bags, sealed inside a locked safe, buried beneath the dirt in the backyard of the very house where his wife ironed clothes at midnight to stay awake, where his 7-year-old son wore shoes with a hole in the sole because there was no money for new ones, and where his 4-year-old daughter had learned, at an age when children should only be learning how to laugh, that asking for more food at the table was pointless. Raymond had the money. Raymond always had the money. And Raymond chose, every single day, to let his family suffer anyway. What you are about to hear is not fiction. Cases of financial concealment within marriages have been documented extensively across the United States, with some of the most extreme involving husbands who maintained full, functioning secret financial lives while their families lived below the poverty line inside the same household. Financial dishonesty in marriage is, according to family law experts, a form of domestic abuse, because the intent is to control information and strip a wife of her power and her agency. But what made the Webb case different from almost every other case on record was not simply that Raymond hid the money. It was how his wife found out. It was what she did after she found out. And it was the cold, breathtaking precision with which she made sure that, when she finally walked out of that house, Raymond Webb would have nothing left but a hole in the ground and a letter on a kitchen table. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell us where in the world you are watching from. We would love to know. And if you have not already hit that subscribe button, please do it right now so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Stories like this one are only the beginning. Now let us go back to where this all started. Let us go back to the man Raymond Webb used to be, or at least the man he allowed the world to see. Because to understand what happened in that backyard, you first have to understand what happened inside that marriage. You have to understand how a man can look his wife in the eyes every single morning, watch her count coins to pay for school lunch, and feel absolutely nothing. You have to understand the architecture of a lie that big. And it starts, as most things do, long before anyone realized there was anything to hide. Raymond Webb grew up in a small town in rural Georgia, the second of 4 children born to a father who worked 2 jobs and a mother who prayed every Sunday that the electricity would not be cut off before payday. Money, in the Webb household, was not just a resource. It was the entire emotional weather system of the home. When there was enough, the house was calm. When there was not, everything became sharp and dangerous. Raymond watched his father's face change the moment bills arrived in the mail. He watched his mother hide her worry behind a smile that never quite reached her eyes. He was 8 years old the first time he saw his father cry, and it was not over a death or a loss or a heartbreak. It was over a number on a piece of paper. That night, Raymond Webb made a silent promise to himself that no piece of paper would ever make him cry, that no one would ever have that kind of power over him again, that he would build a wall between himself and financial vulnerability so thick that nothing and no one could ever get through it. The tragedy is that he kept that promise. He kept it so completely, so obsessively, and so secretly that by the time the wall came down, it had crushed everything he claimed to love underneath it. Raymond left Georgia at 19 with $70 in his pocket and a ferocious, almost violent appetite for financial security. He was not educated beyond high school, but he was sharp and relentless. He started with odd jobs, construction work, painting houses, moving furniture. He saved every dollar he did not absolutely need to spend. He learned early that cash, physical cash you could hold in your hand and count yourself, felt safer to him than any number on a bank screen. He did not trust banks. He did not trust financial institutions. He had watched too many people, including his own father, be humiliated by systems that could freeze your account, charge you fees you could not afford, or simply fail you at the worst possible moment. Raymond operated in cash wherever he could, and the more cash he accumulated, the more possessive of it he became. By his late 20s, Raymond had built a modest but quietly profitable network of small businesses, a landscaping operation, a car detailing service, and a small rental property that generated consistent income every month. None of it was flashy. None of it was visible. That was exactly how Raymond wanted it. He drove an old truck. He wore plain clothes. He lived in a way that gave nothing away. And the more he earned, the less he spent, and the more the gap between what he had and what people believed he had grew wider. Raymond Webb had mastered the art of financial invisibility long before he ever met Gloria. Gloria Simmons was 24 years old when she walked into the auto parts store where Raymond was picking up supplies for his detailing shop. She was there for windshield wiper fluid and a replacement headlight. She left with Raymond Webb's phone number written on the back of her receipt. Gloria was warm where Raymond was cold. She was open where he was guarded. She laughed loudly in a way that embarrassed her in quiet rooms, and she loved that about herself. She was a nursing assistant working long shifts at a regional hospital, putting money aside each month toward a practical future she had mapped out in careful detail. She was not naive. She had worked hard for everything she had, but she believed with every part of herself that love was a partnership, that marriage meant you carried each other. That building a life together meant opening your hands and sharing what was in them. She had absolutely no idea who Raymond Webb actually was, and by the time she found out, it was almost too late. They dated for 2 years. Raymond was attentive in those early days, not extravagant but present. He paid for dinners, helped her fix things around her apartment, showed up reliably. Gloria read his frugality as discipline. She read his quietness about money as maturity. She told her mother he was the most grounded man she had ever met. Her mother liked him. Her friends liked him. Everybody liked Raymond because Raymond was careful to give everyone just enough of himself to like. He had been doing that his entire life. Controlling perception was something Raymond had mastered before he had a name for it. They married when Gloria was 26. The wedding was small, Raymond insisted on it. Nothing extravagant, he said. Just family. Just what matters. Gloria agreed because she thought she understood him. She thought they wanted the same things. She moved into the house Raymond had bought, a modest 2-story on the east side of Columbus, Ohio, with a decent-sized yard and a back garden that Raymond immediately claimed as his personal project. He said he wanted to grow things back there. He said it relaxed him. He told Gloria there was no reason for her or anyone else to go digging around back there because he had a whole system and he did not want it disturbed. Gloria thought nothing of it. Gloria trusted him completely. Within 18 months of the wedding, their son Caleb was born. 2 years and 8 months later, their daughter Naomi arrived. And it was right around the time of Naomi's birth that Gloria first began to feel the ground shifting beneath her feet, though she could not yet say why. The money had always been tight. Raymond controlled the household finances entirely. He gave Gloria a weekly allowance for groceries and household needs, a number that never seemed to match what things actually cost. When she brought it up, he would sigh and tell her she needed to manage better. When she asked to see the bank statements, he told her she was being paranoid. When she mentioned that Caleb needed new school shoes, Raymond would look at her with that flat expression she had come to dread and say there was nothing to spare right now, that she needed to be patient, that he was doing his best. Gloria worked her nursing shifts and handed her income directly to Raymond, who managed the joint account and paid the bills. She never saw where the money went. She only knew there was never enough of it. Caleb started first grade wearing shoes that pinched his toes. Gloria packed his lunch herself every day because the school lunch program cost $4 a day, and Raymond said they could not afford it. Naomi had a persistent cough one winter that Gloria could not get fully treated because Raymond said a second doctor's visit in 1 month was unnecessary. Gloria started skipping lunch at work to stretch the grocery budget further. She never told Raymond this. She had long since stopped telling Raymond things that might lead to one of his silences, which were worse than anything he could have said out loud. And every night, at some point after midnight, Raymond Webb got out of bed, put on his boots, and walked to the backyard. Gloria had noticed it twice in the early years and asked about it once. He told her he could not sleep and went outside to clear his head. She believed him. She had no reason not to. She was so exhausted from working, from stretching, from managing the emotional weight of a household that felt perpetually on the edge of collapse, that when Raymond came back to bed, she was almost always already asleep again. She did not have the energy to be suspicious of a man she had trusted with her entire life. What Raymond was doing in that backyard, those nights and hundreds of nights before them, was this. He had dug a pit in the far corner of the garden, behind a section of dense hedging that blocked the view from the house's back windows. The pit was roughly 4 feet deep and lined on the inside with a waterproof membrane he had installed himself. Inside the pit sat a heavy-duty locked safe, bolted to a concrete base he had poured himself during a weekend when Gloria had taken the children to visit her mother. Inside that safe, wrapped in vacuum-sealed waterproof bags and stacked in methodical rows, was cash. Enormous amounts of cash accumulated over years from his businesses, from rental income, from every hustle and transaction Raymond had conducted in a way that left no paper trail. The precise total would not be known until much later, but those who eventually saw it estimated it at somewhere between $800,000 and $1.2 million. Raymond Webb had quietly become a millionaire while his wife packed peanut butter sandwiches for a child who was still hungry after eating them. He had stacked and counted and sealed and buried his fortune in the dark while his daughter wore the same 3 outfits on rotation because there was no budget for new clothes. He had built himself a secret kingdom underground and left his family to survive on the scraps he was willing to release from it. And he had done it so carefully, so consistently, and with such complete confidence in his own invisibility that he never once considered the possibility that someone in that house might be awake when he was not expecting them to be. He never once considered that a 4-year-old girl named Naomi Webb could not sleep on a Tuesday night in November, climbed out of her bed to use the bathroom, and passed the hallway window that faced the backyard at the exact moment her father was kneeling in the dirt with a flashlight, opening the safe. Children see things with a clarity that adults have long since traded away. They have not yet learned to filter out what does not fit the story they expect the world to tell. Naomi stood at that window for a moment. She would later describe it to her mother with the simple, precise vocabulary of a 4-year-old. She said Daddy was putting bags in the hole again. The word again implied she had seen it before, perhaps in some half-woken state she had not fully retained until now. She used the bathroom, went back to bed, and forgot about it by morning the way children forget dreams that do not frighten them. But the next morning, at the breakfast table, while Raymond was pouring his coffee with his back turned, Naomi looked at her mother and said it. "Mommy, I saw Daddy putting bags in the hole in the garden last night. He does it a lot." Gloria Webb did not react. She did not ask a follow-up question while Raymond was in the room. She looked at her daughter, nodded slowly, and said they would talk about it later. Raymond did not hear, or if he did not show it. He finished his coffee, kissed the children on the top of their heads the way he always did, the gesture of a loving father, the performance of a man with nothing to hide, and left for work. Gloria sat at that kitchen table for a long time after he left. Something was rearranging itself inside her. She could feel it but could not name it yet. She had spent years pushing down the voice that told her something was wrong. She had quieted it with logic. He's just private. He's just careful. He's just cautious about money. It's not personal. But Naomi's words had given that voice a shape, a location, a backyard with a hole in it. And Gloria Webb, who had spent 7 years being told there was nothing left, who had starved herself so her children could eat, who had watched her son go to school in shoes that hurt his feet, decided quietly and completely that she was going to find out exactly what was in that hole. She waited 3 nights. She needed to know Raymond's pattern exactly, not approximately, but exactly. She needed to know what time he left the bed, how long he was outside, and what time he returned. She lay perfectly still each night while her husband slid out from beneath the covers, and she counted. He left at approximately 12:45 each time. He was outside for between 20 and 30 minutes. He returned and was back in bed before 1:30. She noted that he always came in through the back door, always went directly to wash his hands at the kitchen sink, and always checked that the back door was locked before coming upstairs. He had a system. Raymond always had a system. What Raymond had not accounted for was that Gloria was building one of her own. On the fourth day, a Thursday afternoon when Raymond was across town at one of his job sites and both children were in school, Gloria walked into the backyard for the first time in months. She walked past the vegetable beds Raymond kept near the fence, past the tool shed, past the dense hedge at the far end, and she found it. The ground back there looked undisturbed to someone who was not looking closely, but Gloria was looking closely now. She found the edges of the pit cover, a section of fitted boards overlaid with soil and planted grass that Raymond had constructed to look like ordinary ground. It was sophisticated. It had taken time and planning, and the kind of quiet determination that Gloria now understood her husband had always directed entirely toward himself. She uncovered it. She looked down at the safe. She had no combination, no key. But Gloria Webb had a brother named Terrence who had spent 3 years working in commercial security installation before switching careers, and whom she trusted with her life. She called Terrence from the backyard with the pit open at her feet and told him she needed him to come over and she needed him to not ask questions until she was ready to answer them. Terrence arrived within the hour. He looked at the safe. He looked at his sister's face. He asked no questions. Within 40 minutes, using methods he did not explain, the safe was open. What Gloria Webb saw when she looked inside that safe will be something she describes, in the years that follow, as the moment she stopped being surprised by anything. There was more money in that hole in her backyard than she had seen in her entire life combined. Stacked in dense, vacuum-sealed bricks, organized by denomination, rubber-banded and labeled in Raymond's meticulous handwriting. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly more. Sitting in a pit in her garden while her children ate rice and canned beans for dinner 4 nights a week. She did not cry. She did not scream. She stood at the edge of that pit and she felt something move through her that was colder and quieter and far more powerful than grief. It was clarity. She called Terrence back over that evening. Together, while the children slept, they transferred everything from the safe into 4 large duffel bags that Gloria had purchased that same afternoon from a sporting goods store 2 towns over, paying cash from the small emergency fund she had hidden from Raymond in an old coffee tin at the back of the kitchen cabinet. She stored the bags at Terrence's house. She resealed the pit cover. She made sure the garden looked exactly the way Raymond had left it. And she went back inside, washed her hands, and sat at the kitchen table in the dark for a while. Then she went to bed. Raymond came home that evening the same way he always did. He asked what was for dinner. He ate what Gloria made. He watched television. He went to bed. He had no idea that the ground had already shifted completely beneath his feet and that everything he had built in secret was already gone. Gloria spent the next 4 days making arrangements with a quietness and efficiency that later, when people who knew her tried to describe what she had done, they could only call it remarkable. She secured a new apartment in a neighboring city under her own name. She contacted a family law attorney and began the preliminary conversations she needed to have. She opened a bank account in her name only at a credit union across town and began depositing money in amounts designed not to attract immediate attention. She paid Caleb's school account forward for the next 2 semesters. She bought Naomi 3 new pairs of shoes and a winter coat. She stocked the kitchen of the new apartment with more food than her children had seen in one place in their lives. She settled every outstanding household bill in the house she was about to leave, because Gloria was not a woman who left messes behind her. And then, on a Friday afternoon, she cooked Raymond Webb the finest meal he had ever eaten in his life. She made his favorite slow-braised short ribs with roasted garlic mashed potatoes, green beans sautéed in butter, fresh-baked cornbread, and a sweet potato pie cooling on the counter when he walked through the door. The house smelled extraordinary. The table was set properly. The children were bathed and dressed and sitting quietly with the contained, uncertain energy of children who sense that something important is happening, but cannot identify what. Raymond walked in and stopped in the kitchen doorway. He looked at the table. He looked at Gloria. He looked at the food. His face moved through surprise and landed somewhere that looked, for just a moment, like the face of a man who remembered something he had lost a long time ago. He sat down, he ate. He told her it was the best meal she had ever cooked. He asked where she got the money for short ribs. Gloria smiled across the table and told him that her supervisor had approved a bonus she had been waiting on for months. It had finally come through. She said it calmly, with the ease of someone telling the truth, because in the way that mattered most, she was. She had waited a long time for what was hers. It had finally come through. Raymond nodded, satisfied, and reached for a second piece of cornbread. He did not check the backyard that night. He had no reason to. Everything felt normal. Everything felt fine. He had been outplayed so completely that he could not even feel it happening. The following afternoon, a Saturday, Raymond told Gloria he was going to run some errands. He kissed her on the cheek, the last time he would ever do that, and backed his truck out of the driveway. The moment his truck turned the corner, Gloria moved. She had already packed 2 bags, the children's essentials, the documents she needed. She loaded the car methodically. She put Caleb and Naomi in their seats. Caleb was 7 and old enough to understand that something large was happening. He asked no questions. He held his sister's hand in the back seat. Gloria pulled out of the driveway and did not look in the rearview mirror for the first 3 miles. On the kitchen table, she left a single envelope. Inside it was 1 page, handwritten in Gloria's clear, steady script. It read, "Raymond, I know about the pit. I know about all of it. I have known for longer than you think. I want you to know that the meal I made you on Friday was cooked with the money you buried in the ground while your children went to bed hungry. I thought it was important that you knew that. We are not coming back. Do not look for us. Do not contact my family. The children are safe, and they are with me, and they will finally be fine. I am not angry anymore. I just needed you to understand what your money could have bought all along. Gloria." Raymond Webb returned home that afternoon to a house that was exactly the way he had left it. The dishes from Friday's dinner were washed and stacked. The table was clean. The children's rooms were tidy. The only thing different, the only thing that told him anything had changed, was the silence. Not the ordinary silence of an empty house. Something deeper than that. A silence that had weight to it. He stood in the kitchen and read the letter twice. Then he walked through the house room by room, opening doors, looking into corners, the way a person does when they are hopping to discover that what they just read was a mistake. It was not a mistake. He walked to the backyard. He moved through the vegetable beds, through the tool shed, past the hedges. He knelt at the corner of the garden and pulled back the fitted boards. He looked down into the empty pit. The safe was still there, bolted to its concrete base. The door of the safe was closed but unlocked, and when Raymond swung it open, what he found inside was exactly what Gloria had known he would find. Nothing. Not a single bill, not a single bag. Every brick of cash he had spent years accumulating, every midnight trip, every lie, every morning he had watched his wife count change for school lunch while he said nothing. All of it was gone. The only thing left at the bottom of the safe, placed there deliberately, was the receipt from the grocery store where Gloria had bought the ingredients for Friday's dinner. Raymond Webb sat on the ground next to that open safe for a very long time. The sky went from afternoon to evening around him, and he did not move. Neighbors later reported that they had heard nothing unusual from the Webb house that evening. No shouting, no breaking things, no sound at all. Just a man sitting in his backyard in the dark, next to a hole in the ground, with a grocery receipt in his hand. Gloria Webb rebuilt her life with a speed and sureness that surprised even the people who loved her most. She found a nursing position near the new apartment within 3 weeks. Caleb enrolled in a new school where, for the first time, he had everything he needed on the first day, the right supplies, the right shoes, a lunch his mother had packed because she wanted to, not because she had to. Naomi started pre-K at a program 2 blocks from the apartment and told her teacher on the first day that her favorite food was short ribs. She would need to grow into that particular taste, but the point was that she knew now what she was allowed to want. Gloria worked with her attorney and eventually secured a legal settlement that formalized what she had already established on her own terms. She did not speak publicly about what had happened. She did not need to. She had said everything she needed to say in one page of handwriting on a kitchen table. Raymond Webb was left with a house, a set of businesses, and a reputation that began to unravel the moment people who knew the family started asking questions he could not answer without indicting himself. He never filed a police report. He could not, without explaining where the money had come from, how much of it existed, and why none of it had ever appeared on a tax return. The fortune he had so carefully hidden from the world was a liability the moment it was gone from the pit, because reporting its theft meant confessing its existence. Raymond Webb had built his secret so well that when it was finally used against him, he had no defense. He could not go to the law. He could not go to family. He could not go anywhere. He had spent years making sure no one knew what he had. And now that it was gone, no one knew what he had lost. There is a question at the center of this story that is worth sitting with before we close. Not whether Gloria was right or wrong. That is for you to decide, and we genuinely want to know what you think. But a deeper question. A question about what Raymond thought he was protecting. Because he was protecting something. Men like Raymond Webb always are. The money was never really about the money. It was about the wall he had built inside himself at 8 years old, watching his father cry over a number on a piece of paper. It was about the terror of exposure, the bone-deep fear that if anyone truly saw the full picture of his finances, they would have power over him. It was about control. Complete, absolute, unshared control over the one thing that had always made him feel safe. And the cruelest irony of Raymond Webb's story is that in building that wall so high and so thick and so impenetrable, he guaranteed the exact outcome he spent his entire life trying to prevent. He ended up with nothing. He ended up completely alone. He ended up sitting in the dark next to a hole in the ground, which is, when you think about it, a remarkably precise image of what he had been doing to his family all along. Gloria Webb did not win because she outsmarted her husband, though she did. She did not win because she was stronger or braver or more determined, though she was all of those things. Gloria Webb won because she understood something about Raymond that Raymond never understood about himself. She understood that a man who buries his treasure is a man who has already decided that his treasure is more important than the people living above it. And once she understood that, the rest was simply a matter of patience, of watching, of waiting for the right moment, and of making sure that when she finally moved, she left nothing behind. That is what she did. She left nothing behind. Not a debt, not a mess, not an enemy, not a scene. Just a letter, a grocery receipt, and a hole in the ground that Raymond Webb will spend the rest of his life trying to explain. Now we want to hear from you. Was Gloria wrong to take that money, or did she take exactly what was always hers? Leave your answer in the comments below. We read every single one. And if this story moved you the way we believe it will, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Hit the like button, subscribe if you have not already, and stay close, because next week's story is going to make this one feel like just the beginning. We will see you there.